Yes, Madam President. I move to appoint Beth Martinez to the position of Chief of Staff and Strategic Planning.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Yay. Congratulations. Just because you're losing your right arm.
Yes, she does.
All right, Mr. Burdine, do you have another motion?
Yes, Madam President. I move to appoint Brenda Essenberg to the position of Director of Enterprise Funds.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Burdine and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Vote. Mr. Rosenthal? Not hard enough. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Motion passes. I believe that concludes our closed session action items, so we're ready for our board member reports. Mrs. Bailey, can you give us our activity report, the board's activity report, please?
Yes, and we've been very busy. We have attended Baines Middle School Black History Museum, Central Fort Bend Chamber History Leadership Session, HGAC Board Meeting, Internal Audit Committee meetings, iStation Awards Ceremony at Draybeck Elementary School, State of the County Luncheon, TASB Legislative Conference, meetings with various legislatures' offices in Austin, TASB Board Meeting in Austin, Global Initiative Reception with Bob Hebert and Allison Wen, SHAC Meeting, Fort Bend Education Foundation Gala, Missouri City Leadership Luncheon, Leadership 101, Medical Session and Business Session, Black History Event at Marshall High School, Human Trafficking Presentation, that was the Spirit of Freedom meeting with NAACP, varsity and subvarsity softball games, varsity and subvarsity soccer games, Prograd Senior Serve, Kempner High School, Ridge Point Girls Soccer Playoff Game, and CRSS Fellows Retreat.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Do we have any board member special reports?
Yes, Madam President. I would just like to report that last Wednesday, you see a photograph up there on the wall. Every single one of the Board of Trustees, with Dr. Dupree, Dr. Hill, Dr. Whitbeck, and Mr. Bassett, attended the legislative conference in Austin, and then later called on our elected officials, our state representatives and our state senators, to advocate on behalf of public education. And so all the trustees went up there. In addition to that, I returned on Friday for a TASB board meeting, and in my capacity as the legislative committee chair, I've become aware of many different bills that are being put forth by the Senate right now. And some of these include vouchers and tax cuts and parent trigger, an accountability rating of A through F, where a district would be rated A through F. And on the good side there, on the House side, Jimmy Don Aycock, who is the chairman of the House Education Committee, has come up with an additional $3 billion of new money to help fund public education. The Senate has $1.2 billion. We're going to have to see how all of that works out. But I want to encourage, I see that our audience has shrunk a little bit, and so I might be lecturing or to the to the choir, but public education in Texas is doing very well. And I'm going to cite some statistics that are posted on the TEA website. Texas high school graduation rate hits a record high for the 6th consecutive year. STAR end-of-course results are strong for Texas high school students. The Texas graduation gap has narrowed sharply since 2007. Texas students rank high in comparison of top-performing nations. Texas holds bragging rights for the highest graduation rates in the United States. U.S. students rank #1 internationally in reading. School leaders are good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. Texas independent school districts outperform their charter school counterparts on state ratings. That's on the TEA website. Student participation in AP exams has more than doubled over the last decade. And Texas students perform very well during the tax era. So I mention this to you because public education is under attack right now. And for most of us, we just take for granted that it will be around forever, but that's not true. It's existed as we know it now for 100 years. But it's very important for all of us to keep our eyes and ears open and to support public education, because that is the place where our children are going to get up and go to school and recite the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. They're going to work on their assignments. They're going to work on assignments together. They're going to eat lunch together. They're going to play sports together, fine arts, drama, all those things together. And here in the most diverse county in the United States of America. And I think that makes for a stronger community, a stronger state, and a stronger nation. So I just would like to say to those of you who have supported public education, thank you. I hope that you will continue to do that. And when you hear negative comments being made about public education, I hope you will take the time to look up some of these facts yourself, which again, they're posted on the TEA website, and dispel some of these myths and misinformation that are being bandied about right now in Austin. So public education is strong, and Fort Bend ISD is a school district of academic distinction and has been for a long time. And although we have our challenges, we're working very, very hard to keep Fort Bend ISD at the top where it belongs by an elected board of trustees and a superintendent. Charter schools and private schools do not have local representation. They don't have elected trustees. They have appointed trustees. So if you're for local accountability, which all of our trustees are subject to approval by our community every May, I urge you to continue to support public education, because it is the best hope for this state and for the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. I feel like we should applaud that speech as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim, for leading us up there to Austin on Wednesday. Thank you for chairing the TASB Legislative Committee and showing your leadership amongst that group. And I was very proud of our team for all being there to be supportive of you, and thank you to the administrators who came with us. And I'll just add that we visited over 15 state legislators over 2 days, and we visited with most of the Public Ed Committee. So we did a lot of work, and we appreciate your leadership, Jim. Thank you very much. I think we're ready now to move on to our consent agenda. We have consent agenda items A through K. Do we have any that we would like to have removed and put on action? Then may I have I would like to entertain a motion then.
Madam President, I move to approve consent agenda items 11A through K as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mr. Rosenthal for consent agenda items A through K. Do we have discussion? Does anyone have any questions? Very well, please vote. Motion passes. Our next section then is our action items. We have action item 12A, which is the approval of the name for elementary school 46. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to approve as presented. Motion to approve as presented, please.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rosenthal and a second by Mr. Rice to approve the new name for elementary school 46. Do we have discussion? Mr. Rosenthal.
How'd you know?
You can read your mind.
Yeah, first I would like to thank Dr. Whitbeck and Mrs. Porter for facilitating this meeting. I was the board member on the naming committee for both elementary school 46 and 47, and I thought it was a very smooth and efficient and a good process. It was very interesting the way the names came in and how they kind of moved around, and again, I appreciate Dr. Whitbeck and Mrs. Porter for helping the group come to a consensus that I think everyone could be very proud of. And I am personally very happy with the names that I'm assuming someone will read the bio. And I think I think both names fit very well for our district. And I think what's interesting is there's a Fort Bend ISD connection with each one. So I think they're great names, and it's a good start to two new schools.
I have a summarized bio for the schools. You have a little bit more detail in your packet. But for elementary 46, Carolyn and Vernon Madden Elementary is being proposed and will open in August of 2015 in the Aliana community. The school's honored namesakes, Mr. and Mrs. Vernon Madden, worked in Fort Bend ISD for a total of 61 years of service. Carolyn Madden began teaching first grade at Lakeview Elementary, later teaching art in second grade before retiring in 1994. Following retirement, she has continued to dedicate time each year to volunteer or tutor at the school. Vernon Madden began teaching at Dulles High School the first day it opened, and was then hired as a teacher and a coach at Sugarland Middle School. He later served as assistant principal of Dulles Middle School and Sugarland Middle School before becoming principal of Sugarland Middle School upon the retirement of L.V. Hightower. So our recommendation for elementary 46 is Carolyn and Vernon Madden Elementary.
Thank you, Dr. Whitbeck. Do we have any other discussion on this? So let's vote on this one. Motion passes. Item 12B is the approval of the name for elementary school 47.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Rosenthal and a second by Mr. Rice to approve the name as presented. Dr. Whitbeck, would you like to read us the biography?
Our recommendation is Anne McCormick Sullivan to be opening in August of 2016 in the Riverstone community. Anne McCormick Sullivan Elementary is named after a Dulles High School graduate who gave her life in the line of duty as a Houston Fire Department firefighter. At the age of 3, Sullivan was identified as having learning and speech disabilities, yet progressed through Colony Bend Elementary, making tremendous gains with the support of her regular and special education teachers. At Dulles High School, Sullivan ran cross-country and played soccer all 4 years, receiving the Female Athlete of the Year award as well as a Booster Club scholarship. She later earned her firefighting credentials at Wharton County Junior College and went on to work at the Houston Fire Department 68. Sullivan died heroically on May 31, 2013, when the building in which she was fighting a fire collapsed, killing her and 3 other comrades. Our recommendation for elementary 47 is Anne McCormick Sullivan Elementary.
Thank you, Mr. George. Do you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I have known this girl from my gym. We used to do spinning classes together, and one thing I wanted to mention is I never knew she had speech or learning disabilities. I never knew. So obviously, Fort Bend ISD and her parents did a phenomenal job. Today, when I was reading, or last week I was reading, I realized, oh my God, I've known this person, and I'm very honored to be voting for her name. And it's a great honor for the family. It's a great honor for anybody knew her. And so, thank you for the committee for selecting that name. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments, Mr. Rosenthal?
Yeah, I think this was just such a fitting name. It's unfortunate that many of us ever really heard her name. It would be much better if she was still alive. She were still alive, but I think that this is a great honor, and I just think it's just perfect. So,
Thank you. I agree with that. That's very true. I watched Annie a few times come out and help her mom cross children at the corner of Sweetwater and Austin Parkway, because her mom worked as a crossing guard there for a long time. So, okay. Any more discussion then? Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Action item 12C is the additional campus staff positions for the 2015-16 fiscal year. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve action item 12C as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. Tassan to approve the item as presented. Do we have discussion?
Yeah.
Mrs. Bailey.
So obviously you met with the principals after last Monday.
Actually, that is still ongoing.
Okay. So the other middle school teachers, are those, can you tell me what those are?
The ones at Missouri City?
Yes.
Okay, we, whenever the principal took over the prior year, there were 3 additional units that were allotted because of just the circumstances at the campus. And because of the decrease in students in the coming year, 8 more besides the potential bonus units would have been taken for a total decrease of 11. And so instead of pulling back the 3 bonus units, we decided to just go to pull back on the 8. The original number for the decrease at Missouri City Middle School was a negative 11. And so we changed it to a minus 8. And that's just based on them losing more than 200 students to other campuses as a result of the feeder patterns.
On the feeder pattern? Okay. So on McCullough, I didn't think the feeder pattern alignment, did McCullough get hit pretty hard on the feeder pattern alignment for?
I think he said Missouri City.
It's got, well, no, McCullough Middle School has 10.
They're
I
adding
think
10.
they added.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Was it yeah, I got confused. Was it, they looked reversed to me. Missouri City, then McCullough.
Yeah, on page 89.
Yeah.
Ms. Bailey.
Why are we, from the feeder zoning, are we adding that many students to McCullough? Because I thought we were not.
We're adding students to both McCullough and some at Lake Olympia. But McCullough was the biggest beneficiary of the ones shifting from Missouri City.
About 200 and some children, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we're shifting 200 more students to McCullough
Yes, from Missouri City.
from Missouri City?
Mhm.
Okay. So hence the swap. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Do we have further questions or discussion? Hearing none, please vote. The motion passes. That brings us to item 12D, which is the ratification of procurement services for the repair of the electrical short at First Colony Middle School.
Madam President, I move to approve action item 12D as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mr. Rosenthal. Do we have discussion?
Yes.
We have discussion, Mrs. Bailey. This was an emergency repair, as I understand it.
It's just a temporary fix until the summertime?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm looking on the Fort Bend ISD capital plan and the list of items that were identified for First Colony Middle School. Was this item on here?
It
And
would
if
be,
What would it have been?
it would be transformers.
Okay, so it was not identified by Jacobs.
I don't happen to have my list with me, but if I looked at it, I could tell you they were identified on the Willow Ridge side for sure. On the Willow Ridge project, it's the next agenda item. I would have
Yeah,
to.
and I have the one for Willow Ridge, but I'm looking at the one for First Colony.
Yes,
The reason why
ma'am.
I'm asking is the big item for First Colony was the air handler HVAC,
Yes, ma'am.
and then there was an 11,000 for the motor control center.
Yeah,
I'm
those-
just asking, was this even identified in First Colony by Jacobs? It doesn't seem like
I
it was.
do not believe it was then, if those are the only two items on there. It would say transformers specifically.
For First Colony?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's a big item that Jacobs missed.
Well, I don't know that they missed it, because this is an item, an electrical item shorting out. There could be no symptoms, there may be no symptoms, and they didn't do any type of, on that particular evaluation, they didn't do any type of destructive testing or, heat testing or anything like that. So it was just a visual inspection is what they did. So I don't know that they would have caught that on a visual inspection.
That's an expensive item.
Is it the type of thing where an animal can make a nest in it or something like that that would cause a short?
An animal certainly could. I don't know that that was the case
I
in
don't
this
think that
case.
was the
We
case
have,
here.
oftentimes though, we do have animals that cause grid problems throughout our district though, quite often. And Mr. Bassam has some things to add about it.
Not yet.
There we go.
Thank you.
At First Colony Middle School, there was no visual external sign that this was deteriorated, unlike Willow Ridge High School that they did see with pitting and leakage and all. In fact, when we went and viewed the bus bar system on the outside, the only way that we knew that it blew was it blew one chunk out. And we asked our contractor what the problem was, and he said it was a failure in this type of bus bar system that was unanticipated. There were no critters in there. It was no way for anything to get in there, but some moisture probably got in there and a breakdown in the insulation at this particular site. But if you had looked at it 1 hour before it happened, the outside, the paint was good, the thing was looking perfect, so this was one of those oddball blowouts. As a result of this, we are looking at every other system like this that we have in the district right now. But there was no visual way from the outside to indicate that this thing was at risk of failure, unlike Willow Ridge High School, which they did identify when they saw it. You could see the deterioration on the outside of the bus bar system.
Thank you. I'm just curious, just wondering, because we have a lot of old schools out there with this. So it concerns me because kids missed a day, all
ma'am.
day. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have further discussion on this one? All right, hearing none, please vote. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Our next item is the ratification for the repairs at Willow Ridge High School. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve action item 12E as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mr. Rosenthal. ratification of the emergency repairs at Willow Ridge High School. Do we have discussion?
Yes.
Bailey?
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Cleaver for getting the generators over there as quickly as he did to get Willow Ridge up and going until we can repair this one. So this is, I'm just looking through here again. I'm still looking for it. Hold on.
Yes, ma'am, there's like
Was this the electrical power rerouting?
that's part of it, and then
Okay.
also transformers. I believe the electrical power was somewhere around 650.
Okay, yeah, here's the, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
At that particular campus, we actually own a main transmission line that runs all the way back to past McAuliffe to Post Oak. And so that particular line is going to receive some repairs in this bond as well.
okay, so, but we're able to, we're going to repair all of this within the next 2 weeks, though?
Not the main transmission line. It is
When
not.
is that?
That is upcoming in the bond program. We're going to secure an engineer and get that work done.
And that's the transmission line?
Yes, ma'am. And that is in this first round of bond work, which, when I say first round, y'all haven't seen the packaging. So it's the first round for the first round 2015, 2016 work to begin.
We're going to be getting that after you meet with the Bond Oversight Committee?
No, ma'am. Once we seek approval for the architects and engineers, then we will move forward with that work.
Okay.
So those recommendations are coming forward in April.
And they've got a big HVAC, too, coming up.
Yes, ma'am.
Willow Ridge does. Okay. I'd like to see that one, too,
And
before we have any more problems at Willow Ridge.
yes, ma'am. And I appreciate you saying, thank you for getting the generators out there, but really my team responded. Terrence Thomas and David Moore responded, and they did a wonderful job that day. They really worked it.
Thank you. Are those loud, those generators? Are they quiet? Really? Wow, that's great. Thanks.
Mr. Cleaver, I just had a question. It's my understanding is from your explanation that the overhead power line is running from Post Oak a half a mile all the way over to Willow Ridge. Normally, the CenterPoint would own that line, correct?
Yes, sir.
But when it was built back in the day, for whatever reason, Fort Bend decided to install and own that primary overhead service, which is not normal.
Yes, sir.
Same thing with the pad mount transformer. If this were another campus, CenterPoint would probably own that, and CenterPoint would be the one responding to it. But since we own it, we've got to respond to it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I would just like to also say thank you for getting out there and getting the emergency generators and for refueling the generators, which have to run 24/7. Otherwise, the cooler, freezer, fire alarm, burglar alarm, everything goes off. So thanks for getting up in the middle of the night to do that.
You're welcome, and I'll pass that on to my team. They really did the work.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Do we have any other questions or discussion on this item? All right, very well, then please vote. The motion passes. That completes our action items for tonight. Our next item is the review of future board meeting agenda items. Dr. Dupree?
All right, as you can tell, we have a full agenda again in April. We have some information items. We're going to have the usual budget and legislative update. We're also going to be having, Dr. Hill is going to present kind of the planning update for the instructional area, including the special education task force update and other special projects that are taking place. And we're also going to provide a thorough update on the bond program. There's been a lot of work done since you hired Jacobs. We're meeting with the Bond Oversight Committee this coming Thursday. And then about 10 days later, we'll provide you that same update, along with recommendations, as Max mentioned, for architects and engineers for many of the projects. So just, that'll be on the workshop agenda and the meeting agenda. We're also going to have at the regular meeting in April, we will have PASA here to do their annual demographic update for the board as well. And then there's just a number, as you can see, of potential action items, including the guaranteed maximum price for elementary 47. That will enable us to break ground on that school and get moving. You can read the rest of those. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any about April. May, we kind of come back in the same vein, legislative and budget. As you can tell, with the board adopting the budget in June, there's going to be a budget on every agenda until we get to that point. We'll do another strategic planning update. At this point, we're planning on probably technology, but that's still subject to change. We're doing a lot of work as a team right now to kind of organize our planning. And now that we have a new chief of staff, she's going to take that on. So some of this may be changed in order as if she wasn't doing it already. But some of this could be shifting. But just know we're really trying to get a strong planning update every month for you. We'll do budget again, employee update review, some technology items, and then, let's see, of course, the board election is in May, so we'll be canvassing those results and then swearing in elected members to the Board of Trustees. And then in June, the big thing is the budget adoption, and then that's you don't see reflected here, but ongoing strategic planning updates. What questions or thoughts do you have about anything else we need to be discussing?
Anybody have any questions or things to add? All right, then we are ready to adjourn if we have a motion.
Madam President, move to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.